Hi, this is Valerie. In this video, I'll show you how to knit a cable stitch called the 6-stitch braid and how to read the knitting graph and corresponding pattern. Let's get started. The braided cable, also called the braided plait, is a traditional knit cable stitch commonly used in Aran sweaters. This is the pattern and the corresponding graph. You can download this pattern on my website. The link is in the description below. This is the 6-stitch braid, but the technique is the same for all basic braided cables, 9, 12, 15 stitch, etc. And I'll show you these at the end of the video. I wish I could say there was only one standard, but unfortunately, no. You will find cable patterns using different notations and symbols to represent the same cable stitch. But I'll encourage you to learn and practice the basic cables, and the rest will come. I'll show you a couple of the most common alternatives at the end of the video. You see two abbreviations here. RS is right side, WS is wrong side. I like to add a couple of all knit stitches on either side to prevent the piece from curling up on the edges. You'll see that here, the 2 knit stitches at the end of the row and at the beginning of the row. These 2 stitches are knit on every row. I've already cast on 14 stitches. Start with row 1, which is the wrong side row, and we will knit 4, purl 6, and knit 4. The dot symbol means to purl when you're working on the right side and knit when you're working on the wrong side. That's why these are knit, because we're working on the wrong side. And these 6 stitches that will form the braided cable on the wrong side are purled, so they appear knit on the right side. This is row 1, which corresponds on the graph to row 1 in the pattern. You'll note that the written instructions progress downward, but the graph progresses from the bottom up because it's a graphical representation of the completed work. You'll find some patterns simply say knit the knits and purl the purls on the subsequent wrong side rows. This is a shorthand notation which just means to work the stitch the way you see it. First row on that wrong side is setting up the braided cable pattern for you. Now we turn for row 2. Row 2 is a right side row, and all of the cables are worked on the right side. There are no cables worked on the wrong side rows. The right side rows all begin with knit 2 and then purl 2. And this is the corresponding graph row to this pattern row. Right side rows are read from the right to the left. Wrong side rows are read from the left to the right. This is the first cable, and it's the 2-2 LC. The 2-2 LC means the cable is worked over the next 4 stitches. LC means left cross, so the first 2 stitches cross over the second 2 stitches in a leftward direction. You'll see in the stitch glossary the 2-2 LC, and how it's worked is you slip the next 2 stitches to the cable needle and place at the front of the work, and then you knit the second 2 stitches and then knit the 2 stitches from the cable needle. After you complete the cable, you knit the next 2 stitches. Then you do a purl 2 and a knit 2 and turn. I'm using a really lovely Debbie Bliss 100% merino wool that I picked up from LOVECRAFTS. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can order it if you'd like to give it a try. I find it's a beautiful weight and color for cable, traditional Aran cable sweaters. The next 3 rows are cable free, and that's row 3, 4, and 5. So it's a wrong side row, a right side row, and a wrong side row. Note in the written pattern that you won't see rows 3 and 5 and 7 because they're all the same as row 1. So let's work those 3 rows, and then we'll be ready for another cable row. On this cable row, we have the 2/2 RC. RC means right cross, and this is where the second 2 stitches cross over the first 2 stitches to the right. I have a little tip for you as a reminder when you should put your cable stitches on the back versus the front. In the 2-2 RC, remember this phrase, be right back. So when you see the R, think be right back, and that will remind you that the cable needle goes in the back. This is the graph symbol for the right cross, 4-stitch right cross cable. We're working on row 6. So when you look at the glossary, it tells you to slip the next 2 stitches to the cable needle and place at the back of your work, and then knit 2 and then knit the 2 from the cable needle. The other thing to note is that the first 2 stitches of our 6-stitch cable are knit. So you just knit those first 2, and the right cross cable is worked on the last 4. And then we finish the row again with purl 2, knit 2. And then to finish off this pattern, we just complete row 7 and 8. Row 7 is a wrong side row, and row 8 is the right side row, and there are no cables. Then you just repeat that 8 rows for the desired length, and then you cast off. And this is how the braided cable looks after several repeats. This is the pattern for the 9-stitch. You'll see it's exactly the same, except it's 9 stitches across, and it's using the 6-stitch left cross cable and alternating the right cross 6-stitch cable. So the technique is exactly the same, the pattern's exactly the same, except you're doing 6 stitches for each cable. This one is the 12-stitch braided cable. Again, it's exactly the same, but it's an 8-stitch cable. I also have the one for the 15-stitch, which is using a 10-stitch cable. I'm just going to demonstrate the 12-stitch braided cable. I've already done a couple of repeats of it, and I am ready to start row 2. And remember, when you see LC or left, that means you put the cable needle in the front. So we slip 4 onto the cable needle, and then now I want to make sure that when you're doing this, you make sure you put the thread to the back. If you forget and it wraps over the top, you're going to end up making an extra stitch when you don't want one. So remember to always get it to the back to do the knits, and knit 4 off of this needle, and then knit 4 from the cable needle, like this. You can use a regular, you can use cable needles. Some of them are shaped like a hairpin, some of them just have a little notch in them. I've always used a double pointed needle, which is my preference, but either will do just fine. All right, so we do that is the cable, and then we have 4 knit, and finish the row by purling 4, knitting 2. Just like the 6-stitch braid, you do 3 rows before you do the right cross cable. On the cable, the first thing I do is knit the first 4, and then I do the 8-stitch right cross. Remember the rhyme, when you see the R, be right back. To remind yourself that to do a right cross, you put the cable needle in the back. Alright, so just put these 4 stitches on the cable needle, leave them in the back, knit these 4, three, 4, and then knit the 4 from the cable needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now again, when you go to purl, remember to put your yarn to the front. If you don't, you could end up with a extra stitch, and then you'd have to ravel it back and do it over. I finished the 12-stitch braided cable off, cast off, and I'm I've got the two of them side by side to compare. This is the 6-stitch braided cable and this is the 12-stitch braided cable. And you can see how much with the wider cable it stands up more. They're both very pretty and work well in traditional cable sweaters. As promised, this is a sample of 3 different cable notations that you will find in patterns. It's not limited to these 3. You will find more. The one I've been using is the first column here, and I have 4 stitches I'm showing you. There is an organization called the Craft Yarn Council, and I've left their website link here, and it'll be in the description below as well. I have seen many vintage cable knitting patterns that use this notation though. You'll see C4B, which means cable 4 back. That is identical to the 2-2 right cross, or alternatively called the 4-stitch right cross. Vintage patterns typically will not show a graph. It's written instructions only. When you compare the description of how to do the stitch, they'll all be the same. I'm going to be doing another video demonstrating a lovely cable pattern called a Saxon braid, and it will be part of the mystery sweater video I'm planning to make. Please remember to hit like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.